All right, everyone, we have actually relatively major news with regards to immigration as well as possibly even the trajectory of the next election, which is that Trump, he's coming fresh off a wave of victories with regards to immigration, and now he's just gotten basically the crowning gem of what he wanted, which is the ability to crack down on asylum seekers. Now, what this means is specifically what he had suggested was that a safe third country has now been formed. It was Guatemala or Honduras. I can't remember which one agreed to be. The left had argued that because that country wasn't like really first world, hyper developed, like it doesn't look like the nightlife of Dubai or something, that it doesn't count. So, in other words, international law only counts if the liberals agree with it, which is really funny on that particular issue. And the idea is the United States has to take asylum seekers from countries unless there is a closer country. If you're seeking asylum, if you are a legitimate refugee, the understanding is you're going to the closest possible place you can be that has rudimentary safety. That is, that it is a stable state. It doesn't have to be a good, well-developed, state that's going to give you welfare and, your own house and stuff like that and let you resettle Homestead Act style. It simply has to be a temporary waiting space while things are solved in your home country. That's the whole idea of refugees. The whole idea of asylum seeking is that the person is leaving until the instability is gone because they can't deal with it. They're going back as soon as the instability is over. Now, a lot of the instability, ironically, is due to far left economic policies. Venezuelan refugees, people from Nicaragua, it's leftism that's destroying those economies. What happens is that a state starts being run by non-leftists, and it gets better. You don't need the asylum seeking so much. People, though, have been seeking asylum in the U.S. from all over Central and South America because until recently there wasn't any other country down there that actually took refugees on a regular basis. They weren't assignee to that particular idea. Now there is. Trump has argued, therefore, we can reject all of those who sought asylum who would not otherwise qualify. We can put additional limitations on them in various ways. We can make sure that they're getting screened more appropriately. We can crack down on the methodology employed, and we can keep more people out that even would qualify. We're not going to be unlimitedly generous to every man, woman, and child in the world. That's not what huddled masses actually means anyway, and you're all full of shit. The Supreme Court has sided with him, which means now we can deport millions and millions of people who do not legitimately have any claim to be in this country, paired with the fact that he's gotten Pentagon funding now for his wall to expand that considerably and retrofit especially existing barriers as well. Trump has already won. Trump has now fulfilled his promise on immigration on a fundamental level. If over the next few months things continue unabated, he's busing to sanctuary cities, he's going to begin the deportation process and the additional screening process, the wall is being built, he has fulfilled his main promise to his core fans. This will anger people on the left, but then again, they're angry anyway. They think that Hitler runs the country. They believe that it's Hitler-esque to build a wall to keep people from flooding into your country. It's really quite surreal how they've managed to convince themselves in their cognitive dissonance that this has any claim to reality whatsoever. They've convinced themselves that the new Hitler is someone who doesn't want to disarm or censor the native population and actually appears to give a damn about the economy. Very interesting Third Reich that we're suffering under in the United States today. And Trump's doing what he needs to do. And this, by the way, this kind of deflates the Coulterites and the Shapiroites of the world who have been whining and crying their fake crocodile tears for so long about Trump isn't doing what he said he was going to do. Well, he has been. The problem is he's faced continuous obstruction, and if you knew anything about civics, you'd understand why he can't unilaterally go around it. The closest he could do is get Pentagon funding that was then had an injunction issued against it. He had to wait for the SCOTUS decision. He attempted to begin deporting people. He's been stymied in that process. It is complete chaos as far as our immigration system goes because he's actually doing what he said he wanted to do. He's facing legislative and judicial obstruction, and now he can go around it. SCOTUS has sided with him now every single time he's come before them. They sided with him with regards to his temporary ban on travel to and from certain states in the world where terrorism is common, the so-called Muslim ban that never had anything to do with that. They sided with him on that. The courts gave him that. The courts have given him his funding, his $3.5 billion Pentagon discretionary funding, and now they've given him deportation abilities over certain asylum-seeking groups, and the ability to prevent further problems from that. Essentially, if you are from very close by, if you're Mexican and you're seeking asylum or something, okay, maybe that's one thing. There will be more stringency required there too. By the way, Mexico actually enshrines, I was looking this up the other day in connection with Second Amendment sort of like firearm rights. Mexico actually allows firearms in its constitution, but there's only one store where you can purchase them that's been licensed, so there's like the waiting list is forever. So that's why they're a no-gun society. They're actually allowed to have guns, but their government has prevented them anyway. You know, much to the happiness of the cartel members. Apparently something like 1,000 illicit weapons are smuggled into Mexico from the U.S. every day. We should try to increase that because, you know, liberty is a good thing. SCOTUS is siding with Trump. Well, he's won. Trump has won on immigration. Now, if we give him a second term, we can get the whole wall built and we can actually get the system overhauled. What I would like to see, what I want to see from Trump is not just, hey, there's a problem with illegal immigration, we got to tackle it. Okay, granted, that's a huge problem. That's the one that gets the attention because it's very visible. We've got an additional problem with the legal immigration system. The problem there is that you try to legally immigrate, and for anything other than a relationship, there's a years-long visa lottery, fucking waiting lists, and you know, all sorts of crazy shit. It costs a lot. It's extremely legalistic. It's extremely bureaucratic. Someone who's attempting to come in the legal, normal, respectable way is almost prevented from doing so. Has to jump through a million hoops. Whereas until, well, now, basically, someone could come to the border and say, well, I'm seeking asylum. I'm from Venezuela or whatever, and they couldn't turn him away. The legislator literally wouldn't let him. He couldn't even detain people for long enough to process everybody. And then they went on this weird tour. Remember when the Democrats in the House went from center to center to see all the refugee kids and take photo ops with them and pretend to cry like AOC did? And it's like people had to gently remind them that they're not the same as concentration camps, which didn't have to do with keeping people out of your glorious nation, and that Obama actually was the one that saw over the expansion of this system. And didn't expand it far enough, I guess, because they're still overcrowded. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that we don't have effective border control. But the Democrats didn't think of that one. I mean, we've got literally Democrats arguing now for decriminalizing illegal crossings on the border. This is not a sane, mentally healthy political movement anymore within the Democratic Party. They're not even being like Obama or like a John Kerry or Al Gore or something like that. They've gone way off into left field so that their mainline candidates are all arguing in favor of basically blanket amnesty for, 15, 20 million people? Meanwhile, not a single one of them has even addressed the throttling of legal immigrants. Not a single one, as far as I know. Well, there wouldn't even need to be a legal immigration system. I guess immigration would require at that point you walk across the border and give them your fingerprints, and then you get a driver's license as long as you're coming through into California. I guess problem solved. Just might as well issue social security numbers to everyone in the whole world at that point. I think you'd have to tack an extra number onto them to effectively do that, or maybe even two of them. Yeah, it'd be an interesting time. Hey, population of China, come over here and start voting. I'm sure that they won't vote for communism. See, that's the problem with open borders, so-called libertarianism as well. That's about all. Peace out.